Hi, I'm Phil, and welcome to part 2 of the first topic, where we make a name badge. And you can see the presentation on my Dropbox, and the copy of this video is on YouTube. So let's do a little bit of revision of some of the concepts we looked at last week. So if you look at your microbit, the most important things that we're looking at are the two push buttons. That's push button A, push button B, and we learned how to connect to the Windows computer using a USB connector and cable. And at the other end, there's an edge connector. And in future projects, we will put that edge connector into the bitmaker board of the BitGadget kit. So in the name project, this is our first project. It's a Hello World program. And when you're starting to learn a new computer or a new computer program, you often start with a program like this. And all it does is copies your name or the text, Hello World, and puts that on the screen or a display. So we're going to learn how to use the LED array and push buttons of microbit, and we'll explore how to use in practice Makecode. And that's the program we use for coding microbit. So remember the different steps involved in a project. So project 1 will be no different. We have to know what the aim is or what the objective of the task. And here it's just simply to print your name on the microbit LED array when you press the buttons. We list the hardware, and the hardware is just the microbit. There's the construction is just simply to connect the USB cable to the computer, and the other end goes to microbit. For the software, we're going to use Makecode, and we can construct the software on a PC, and then we test it. That testing is just to verify that our objective has been met. And then we can declare whether it worked or whether it didn't work, and did we have any issues right at the end. So if we use these headings, all of our projects will have the same cycle. And if it has a problem, we repeat that cycle until we get it to work. So actually, we're going to learn quite a few things: how to connect the microbit to the PC, how to use Makecode, how to download a program from the Windows PC to microbit, and the steps of developing a program. We launch Makecode on the Windows PC. We set up the environment. So we've got a Windows PC. It's a good idea to have a USB memory stick. So if you didn't bring one along this week, perhaps you could bring one next week. And that means you can store the program that you develop on the USB memory stick. And in your own time, you can add to it or modify it. There are other materials you can use if you want to wear your name badge, and you can use the battery instead of using the USB to power your microbit. And we're going to learn how to use the microbit with the USB cable. And when we develop our program, if we have to go through a couple of cycles to get it right, we can create a version number An example could be my program is program 1. And if I want to make a change to it, the next version could be program 2. So let's have a look at Makecode and all the different parts to it. So A is the menu. And here we've got a number of things that we may want to do. The first one is the home icon. And we press that if we want to start a new program or load a program from your USB memory stick. And also there's two blocks right next to each other. Well, one's called blocks and the other's JavaScript. Now we're going to use blocks, but your blocks are also converted to the JavaScript text program code. And when you finish the program, have a quick look to see what the JavaScript looks like. Now, JavaScript's quite important because about 90% of the whole internet is based on JavaScript. And if you're good at JavaScript, you can get a job almost anywhere as a programmer to construct programs on the internet. Part B is the simulator. Now this is quite interesting because it will attempt to show you on the screen what happens when the code is executed or when the code is run on a virtual microbit. There is an option if you want to have a look at that, and I'll make a video on it. And it's a different simulator called TinkerCad. And it does more than this simulator. So this simulator is a bit limited. It doesn't show you all the options, and it certainly doesn't allow you to simulate the Grove modules in your bit gadget kit. C is the toolbox, and this is where you go and grab the blocks and put them under the blocks that are already there. So on your screen, when you start Makecode, two envelope blocks, one's called on start and the other's forever. And in the toolbox, you put other blocks inside these envelopes. And it's a good idea to have a look, see what's inside. When you press on any of these tools, they expand to other tools inside. So go and explore that now, see what you can see under basic. Later on, we'll be using advanced, and that allows us to add even more blocks to our toolbox. D is the canvas. That's the program canvas or the editor. And this is where we do our construction. We make our program here and we do our coding on the program canvas. And this is where we drag from the toolbox into the program canvas. And E is the toolbar, which when we press it, it downloads the program to our Windows PC. And once it's on the Windows PC, open up and find out where your program is, and then you can drag it across to the microbit. The microbit should appear as a USB drive. It might be D or E, and you can drag your program into the microbit. And once you do that, it will execute or run. So here's our first program. It's very simple. It's not complete here. All it does is that I'm going to drag from the input basic block, which is number 2 down. You've got basic, then input, and we go and grab on button A, and it's like another envelope. So it's an event. When you press button A, whatever's inside there will work on the microbit. And when it says show string, it will show that text. The text, my first name, Philip, will show on the microbit LED array. And the full program has 4 envelopes: on start, forever, button A and button B. So when you load your program or when you power up the microbit, the on start sequence occurs. And here we've only got one instruction, and it's going to say hello on the microbit LED array. Then it passes over to the forever loop, and it repeats that all the time. It's going to say my name is, then repeat that. And it's only interrupted if you press a button. So when you press button A, it will then show my first name on the microbit LED array. And if I press button B, it will show my surname. So let's go and have a look at that now. So we're going to look at the Chrome browser. And I'm going to start off by going to the home page, and I'm going to start a new project. I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to call name badge, name. So you just type that in, and it will be the first version. So I might call it version 1, just name badge 1. Okay, so if you want to see where the simulator is, there's a little arrow there, and you can open and close that to show you the simulator. Might actually leave it on. Our program's quite simple, and we'll see what happens when we build up our program. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the basic, and we're going to go down and find, you can scroll up and down, and the one we want is show string. And we just bring that across, drag it, and it will click under the first position inside on start. And we'll just leave that. That's what we want to do for the first instruction. For the next one, we do the same again. We just drag that across and we put it under forever. But we change hello to a sentence or a pass or a phrase, my name is. And we want 2 more blocks, and they'll come from the input. And under input, we drag across button A, and we drag another one, but there's an arrow, and we select button B. And what we're going to do is go back to string and put in a string here for just under button A. And we're going to put my first name there, Philip. And we're going to do the same again under button B. And that's the program. So have a look at the simulator. It's going to say hello, then my name is. And if it'll just repeat that until you press button B. So you could put on the button on the simulator, press that, and it will show you your first name. And you can do something similar with button B. So if you press button B, it will show you your surname. So it's showing my surname now on the screen. And if you want to hide the simulator, you can just press that button and you've got more room on the screen for a bigger program. Also, have a quick look at the JavaScript. So it's switching to JavaScript, and there's 10 lines in your program. And this is the equivalent text of what I've put in. So if you actually read that, it says an input on pressing button A, show the string Philip. And it's got brackets around that. So these have to be in the right location. But in this course, we won't go through this in detail other than just having a look to see what the equivalent JavaScript program is. And you can see the start of the program is actually on 7. So on start, the equivalent JavaScript program or equivalent JavaScript instruction is basic.showString hello. And the forever one is the one just under that. So it starts off with a curly bracket and finishes with a curly bracket. And it says basic.showString my name is. So just have a look at that, but we'll only be looking at the blocks that are here. So now that you've got your program, download it by pressing the download button. And you'll get a message that the download is complete. Now, it does take about 30 seconds and the virus program will check to make sure that there's no viruses being entered into the Windows PC. Now, once you're there, you can show in the folder where you'll put that. And here I've got, under users, I've got downloads and the program is just over there. Now, if I load my microbit, what I'll do is I'll just load the microbit now onto the PC. I'll just connect it. And once I connect it, it will come up on the screen here, and you just drag that across. So I'm going to drag it across to where I think the microbit is, and it should go and copy that program. Now the program will have a .hex, and your program is formatted into hex format, and that will go in. So if you open that up, your microbit, it will be copied across. Okay, so let's just finish off the presentation. Our program is here, so we'll just go from the current presentation, and there's our program. And what we're going to do now is a stretch. Now, since you've done so well with the first one, we're going to add an additional block or additional function, and that is we're going to tell the rest of the club what your name is by broadcasting your name onto the microbit radio. So we'll have a look at that in a minute. And we're going to also use variables. So instead of just using my name inside the program, right at the start, I'm going to set up the surname is going to be set to my surname, and my first name is going to be set to Philip. And this way, if you have a variable, you can give it to someone else, and all they've got to do is just change the variable name to their name, and they can use it. So we'll just move on. And what's going to happen is that on the string, we're going to have B there for broadcast, and we're going to use a block here called radio set string. So what we're going to do is actually broadcast my first name onto the radio. So on startup, we've added an additional block. We're going to set the radio to group 1. And that's like a channel. Everyone's going to be on the same channel. So when you send that string, anyone that has an additional instruction, so we need another one, and that is on radio receive, we will show the string of what we get. And here's the overall program. So we might have a look at that and modify our program to do it. So this is what the program's going to look like, the name badge radio. So you do what we did before, but there's a slight modification. There's the names are now variable names, and we've set the radio to group 1. So instead of having one instruction on start, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And button A is exactly the same as it was before, but the role of button B changes. Instead of my surname, I'm going to show B for broadcast and then broadcast. And we introduce another block, which is the on radio received. And when that is received, we then see the name of the person, the first name is broadcast and is shown on microbit's LED array. So let's go and have a look at that. Let's see how that works on Makecode. So we could use the previous program. We'll give it a slightly different name. We'll call it name badge radio. And that'll be radio 1. And the first one, we're going to say hello, but we need to get a radio. And we have to find out where it is. There it is. So you've got basic, input, music, LED, and radio. So we just drag the radio just under our first instruction. And we're going to use variables. So we go to the variable area and we're going to make a variable. And we're going to call that name Sir or surname. And we'll make another one, name first. So you can see how I've constructed that. I've got them similarly, name, they're all grouped together. And I've got a capital F for name first, and I've got a capital S for surname. And they will appear, you can see that now the number of blocks under variables is growing. So I just grab that block now and set it under. And I need to drag the button A down so I've got a little bit more space. And I'm going to do a bit of a trick here. So what you can do is duplicate that and put that under. But there's an arrow here, and you can then select the variable that you want. So we're going to set the first variable, first name, to my first name. And I need a little bit of text here. So what I'm going to do is go to the advanced area, select text, and drag an empty text. Now, look what happens here. It's going to try and, like a magnet, go in. So instead of just a number, it's going to be text. And I'm going to put my first name there. And I do the same, go to text, drag the empty text block, and it goes, we just wait for the two, when they're very close together, I'll just clip on and I'll put my surname. Now we leave these forever as we had before, but for button B, we're going to show B for broadcast, and we want to actually then broadcast when we do that. So we go back to radio, which is in our toolbox, and we look for one that says radio send string. And we just put that under the first instruction on the envelope for button B. So what we're going to do there is we're going to send my first name. And you can get that from the variables. So if you go to the toolbox, you can get your first name and just drag that across and let it attach to that instruction for radio send string. Now we've only got one more instruction to add. And that is what we're going to do is go to the radio. And when we get a message, we need to process it with this series of blocks. And when we get a message, the message will be put into another variable called receive string. So if you open up variables, it's not there at the moment, but we're going to create one, which will be receive string. And that will match the variable that's already in there. So what we do is go back to basic, drag the show string, but instead of hello, we're going to show receive string, and we just put that under. So our program is now ready, it's finished. And we want to download that program. So we press the download, but before that, we'll just check our program just to make sure that it makes sense and there's nothing wrong with it. I think that's exactly the way that I want it. So now, after checking, I press the download, and I'll get a message that the download is complete. I'll press that button. My computer's now scanning to make sure there's no viruses. And if I open it up and show, there it is. I've got the two programs under the downloads folder. And what I'm going to do is look for where microbit, and microbit's going to be on D. I just drag that one across and put it in the microbit folder, and it will then copy that across. And we go to the next phase, and that is testing to make sure that our program actually works. So good luck with that. I hope it all worked for you. Let's finish off the presentation. And here's our program. And so what it's doing right at the start, we set the radio to group 1 or channel 1. And in the forever, we're going to show my name is. In the event, when we press button A and button B, they do something. And we have another button there for receive message. And we test that to see if it worked. Okay, so here's a couple of questions, just 3 of them. True or false? Code or a program gives instructions to a computer to tell it what to do. Is that true or false? So the second one is from the Makecode homepage, how do you get to the program workspace? A, B, C, D, or E? And the last question is, what are the 2 ways to power your microbit? Okay, see if you can find the answers to those 3 questions. Okay, so perhaps you've discovered a little bit of what a microbit is. You've seen how to use Makecode and created your first programs. And you've been able to broadcast your name to the rest of the class using microbit radio. So there's a couple of books, and the library is in the process of getting a couple. So later on, you can continue your interest in microbit yourself with both online courses and also some books. So that's it for the time being, and we'll see you next week.